Hello everyone, Dibz here, and today I'm going to talk about a topic that comes up quite often and is difficult for everyone to agree on, and that is crosshair settings. One of the most commonly asked questions that I receive is, how come you use that type of crosshair, and why do you have bloom on for some heroes and off for others? This question is quite interesting to answer because honestly, it is a mix of both preference and actual benefit together. So in this quick video, I'm going to talk about the new crosshair settings, my own personal choice of settings, including color, and then explain my own reasoning behind my choices. Currently, the only change to the selection of crosshairs is the removal of the short crosshairs option and the addition of the circle and crosshairs option. Now personally, I enjoyed the short crosshairs and do not really see a big benefit to the circle and crosshairs option. Of course, to some, this may be aesthetically pleasing and easier to see. However, I feel that it takes up a bit much of the screen and can possibly be quite distracting. Now, aside from the changes in crosshair selection, there have been options added to change each individual crosshair, such as thickness, width, the center gap, opacity, dot size, and dot opacity. In general, I would find these options to be the most optimal. I would typically have the thickness at 2 since it's easy enough to see, and personally, anything thicker would block too much vision on your target. As to width, I would have that to about 10 so that it is as big as the target's head at medium range and not unnecessarily too large to take up much space. For the center gap, I would either have it at 10 or at 0 depending on which hero I play, and I'll get into that a little bit later. Opacity should always be at 100% so that it's perfectly clear on your screen. Personally, for the dot size, I like to have it at about 5 so that it's not too big or too small. And lastly, for the dot opacity, depending on whether or not you want the dot on your screen with certain options, it should either be 100 or 0. Moving on from the new settings for the crosshair, there are some cases where specific crosshairs are actually useful. One special case is Hanzo's default crosshair. Though Hanzo isn't one of the heroes that I play a ton, his default crosshair is super useful because of the fact that there are different lines that you can use based on the distance from you and your target. Since his arrow has drop off, you can actually use the bottom two parts of the crosshairs to aim at the target the farther they are away from you. Out of all of the crosshairs in the game, Hanzo's default one is the only one that has this type of technical benefit to it when used with a specific hero. So aside from Hanzo's default crosshair for himself, is there an actual benefit for using the other different types of crosshairs? A lot of the time, the choice of crosshair type is based on preference. Some people may feel more comfortable shooting with the dot, and others may have better accuracy with the bigger crosshairs. What I have found helpful to find the right type is to experiment with the different kinds. Play a few games with different crosshairs, practice in the training area with drills, or try shooting some antibots and ask yourself, did it feel good to shoot at the target with this crosshair, or did another crosshair actually feel better than the other? It may take some time for you to figure out which one is for you, but if you're having trouble, here are a few things to help you decide. From my personal experience, I found different crosshairs to be useful for different heroes, and let me explain why. At first, I was very accustomed to the short crosshairs as I played a lot of CSGO before Overwatch and it was the default one for CSGO. However, after experimenting with different crosshairs, I found myself playing better with different ones based on the type of aiming required for different heroes. For example, I found the dot crosshair to be very good with highly accurate shots mid to far distance, and for this reason, I have the center gap to be 0. Heroes that I like using this crosshair for are McCree, WidowMaker, and Soldier. I find the dot to pinpoint exactly where my shot needs to be, and as soon as I don't have vision of the head, since the crosshair is blocking the head, it means that the shot is where it needs to be. Since McCree, Soldier, WidowMaker, and Pharahm are targets that usually engage mid to far distances, it's easier to be accurate with the dot crosshair, since there isn't a lot of chaos going on your screen. However, if I were to play a hero that is consistently in the midst of battle with a lot of action going on, it is easy for me to lose track of the dot crosshair. A perfect example of a hero would be Tracer. This is why for Tracer, I still use a type of dot crosshair, but use the circle crosshair instead, since it's easier to keep track of with a larger outer circle. To create this outer circle, I would make the width of the crosshair to be 10, or you can just use the default crosshair for Tracer. The 10 would be if you wanted to have the same default crosshair on a different hero. The center small dot still allows me to keep good accuracy, especially when doing 180s very quickly and trying to track fast moving targets. while the outer circle makes it quite easy for me to snap in the general area of a target and then focus with the inner dot. Now, depending on whether or not you are used to tracer spread, this brings us to our next topic, bloom. The subject of why I have bloom on or off for some heroes is probably the most interesting out of these three topics. This is because of the fact that bloom makes me lose track of the center of the crosshair, and sometimes it can be distracting when it expands. Let's take a look at tracer. If you have bloom on, when you start shooting, the crosshair expands, and now the focus of the center of your screen is now a larger circle. The larger circle can sometimes actually be too big for your target, and in reality, with bloom off, the small circle is perfectly the same size as the target's head, though you typically would still want to be aiming for the neck. With bloom on, the focus disappears from the center of your screen, and you can sometimes lose sight of exactly where you want your crosshair to be. Now this is a small detail, but to be fair, you want your aim to be as perfect as you possibly can get it, and where you want it to be at all times. Not only that, with enough time played on Tracer, you will get used to on how much the spread is going to be, and then the benefit of having bloom on for Tracer isn't going to benefit you too much since you're going to be up close to your enemies anyway. Now for Soldier, he is a different story when it comes to bloom. He's the only hero aside from Hanzo that I actually find the blooming effect to be useful. Let's quickly compare Soldier 76's shooting mechanics compared to the rest of the heroes in the game. Aside from Hanzo, Soldier is the only hero that has a dynamic spread/bloom, in which I define as having a bullet spread that effectively changes based on how long you shoot from the first bullet that you shoot. If you take a look, aside from Soldier, every single hero that has a bloom effect to their weapon instantly shoots at maximum spread when the first bullet leaves their gun. For some examples, McCree has perfect aim on the reticle 100% of the time unless you use Fan the Hammer. Tracer's bullet spread is instantly at max, Reapers and Roadhog shotguns have a wide range spread, Bastion's sentry form start at maximum spread, and the snipers and projectile launchers all have the same spread throughout while unloading their weapon. The only hero that doesn't have this instant bloom effect is Soldier. The first 4 shots of his weapon are perfectly accurate whether or not you are moving, and after the first 4 shots, his spread begins to get bigger the longer you hold the trigger. If you look closely, you can actually start seeing the bloom increase after the 4th shot. This is the main reason why I have the bloom effect only on Soldier. The visual effect helps you realize that the spread is getting wider and wider, and depending on the distance between you and your target, and also the size of the target, you may want to let go of the trigger and then reset the bloom back to normal so that the next 4 shots you shoot have perfect accuracy at your reticle. This is why you see a lot of Soldier players shoot in 4 bullet bursts and unload at targets close range, since if you're at close range, the target still fills the reticle even at maximum spread. Usually this also applies to shields whether or not you're close or far away. To explain more, if you're far away and unloading at maximum spread but still aiming at a shield, that's perfectly fine since the shield fills your reticle and you won't have a hard time hitting it. However, if you're aiming at a skinny target far away and holding down the trigger for a long period of time, it would make the spread too big. And even if you had a static crosshair, no matter how perfectly you aimed with Soldier, the bullets wouldn't accurately hit the specific area of your crosshair, and you'd probably miss a lot of the shots outside of the static crosshair anyway. So really, there is no benefit of having a static crosshair while playing Soldier. Hopefully that answered the reason why I keep bloom on for Soldier and not any of my other heroes. It's for a very specific reason, but I find it to be very beneficial in increasing my overall accuracy. Lastly, let's talk about crosshair colors. If you take a look at all the maps in Overwatch, many of them revolve around a certain color and shade. For example, Volskaya Industries has a prominent blue/purple color to it. Both Route 66 and Temple of Anubis have a yellow-orangey background. Numbani and Eichenwald have a slight green effect. And Kings Row, Dorado, and Lijiang Tower all have a dark blue hue. With all of these colors in mind, personally, I find the color bright green to be very visible in all of these different environments. Even on the maps Numbani and Eichenwald, the green of the crosshair is much brighter, and the risk of the background color being too close to your crosshair is practically unnoticeable. That is one of the reasons why I've decided to choose green aside from the blue, purple, yellow, and other colored crosshairs. I find that the other colors can sometimes be hard to see against the background color of the map, and that green is the easiest to see for me throughout. If the color of the map matches too closely to the color of your crosshair, the crosshair may actually blend into your surroundings, and for a split second, in some locations, it may be hard to see. You definitely can think about changing your crosshair color based on the map for every match. However, I find green to be seen better in all maps. But if one color helps you more on specific maps, changing the color per map can actually be beneficial. One thing to add is that the enemies that you lay your crosshairs on have a red kind of outline and glow to them. As you guys know, the opposite color of red is green, which means that you can see both colors the best when they have the opposite color as the background. In reality, if the enemy colors were a different color than red, then I'd pick the red crosshair. However, at the moment, it isn't bright enough for me to actually use it. Of course, if you're having trouble seeing a certain color because of color blindness, fear not. There are a bunch of other colors that you can choose from. Choose whichever is best for you, but because of all the maps and their colors, this is just the reason why I personally use the green crosshair. Now, just for reference, I'll leave information in the description on which crosshair I use for each hero. Well, that's about it when it comes to crosshair settings. You can see that sometimes these kinds of settings can be very subjective, and it's all about how it feels to you. On the other hand, based on the map color and how you aim with each hero, other settings can actually make a difference in contributing to better vision. So play around with different crosshairs and see which one works the best for you. Let me know which one you guys prefer in the comments below. Hope this short video helped you guys figure out how to choose which crosshair is best for you. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.